Alright everybody, welcome back to Master Duel. Today we're going to take a look at a deck that is not only in the TCG known as a super budget friendly deck, but also in Master Duel is very reasonable to build with a low amount of gems. This is the deck I have used to get from Gold 5 to Platinum 1 in the new season, so you can get all the way up there with only a very low amount of gems, and this deck that has a super straightforward game plan, easy to build. Let's take a look at the deck list that I used to get into this Platinum 1 rank together. Alright, for this Unchained deck, we play a solid 40 card version that is looking to outgrind the opponent over several turns by playing a control game. We do that by using our Unchained engine in this deck. It consists of 5 main deck monsters, a spell card that searches any Unchained monster, and 2 different trap cards. Let's read one of these Unchained monsters. Only the second effect is really relevant because this is an effect that is the same for almost every Unchained monster. Almost every Unchained monster has this second effect in its text. If this card on the field is destroyed by card effect or by battle, special summon one Unchained monster from your hand or your deck. So this means you want to destroy your own cards at times to get other monsters on the field and keep floating. So this is a very unique concept in Yu-Gi-Oh! For an archetype. Usually we want to destroy the opponent stuff, only in this deck not. We play payoffs for this, not only in the archetype. Obviously the archetype cards will destroy your stuff, will destroy stuff of the opponent, but you don't really suffer from your own cards getting destroyed, but we play other payoffs in this deck as well. One of them being Torrential Tribute. When a monster is summoned, destroy all monsters on the field. We know this card from the Thunder Dragon deck profile already. And it's just a very good card in general. Of course, your opponent's monsters get destroyed, your monsters also get destroyed, but you keep floating into other monsters and get advantage that way. We try to abuse the fact that our monsters are only triggering in the grave by playing Skill Drain. This negates all the face-up monsters on the field while they're face-up on the field. So all the monsters are face-up, negated. We don't care about this. We only want to special summon when they're destroyed. Special summon a big beater, 3000 attack into their stuff, and use our trap cards to still keep playing. One of them being Escape of the Unchained. Target an Unchained monster you control and one card on the field, destroy both. Nice thing, you can also destroy your own cards if you need to. And then the trap cards also have the second effect in common, both of them. If this card is set and destroyed, you can special summon an Unchained monster from your deck. So you can use these to combo as well. As you can see, we only play the super rare cards as one-offs. Nice thing is that all the important Unchained monsters, Sarama being the most important starter, are played at 3, are only normal cards, so common cards in the TCG. You don't need to have any special crafting points for those. The Unchained Soul of Disaster in the TCG, this is always a one-off card, if at all. It's a brick to some degree. You don't really want to draw this card, but it has a nice effect where you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls and link summon a Dark Link monster using the Unchained Soul as well as the opponent's monster. So there's another thing we can go for. Before you get scared of the extra deck looking like a hot mess, we're gonna get into that in just a moment. The other super rare card is Abominable Unchained Soul. You can only special summon it once per turn, and if a card you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon it from your hand. If it's special summoned, discard a card, destroy a card on the field, non-targeting. Super good. So you can do something like using Torrential Tribute when you have an Unchained monster on the field, special summon the Abominable Unchained Soul, discard a card, and destroy a card on the field, non-target. A back row, a spell trap, whatever they have. It's one of the best cards, but in this budget version, we only play one of it, and that's reasonably fine. Because in some scenarios, this is also a brick, and you definitely don't want to max out on it. 2 of would sometimes be nice, because sometimes you want to have access to it in the grind game, maybe on a turn 3 scenario where you also already have this card in the grave because you already used it. But for our purposes, this is fine at 1. We also play Port of Prosperity, and this could also be Port of Extravagance, which would arguably sometimes even be better in this deck, because you need the card advantage if you want to discard cards with Abominable Unchained Soul, and you don't really have other means in this deck to get 2 cards in your hand. So a pot card is definitely necessary, but the thing is, what I was thinking about, if we want to make this free-to-play friendly, unless you're playing a lot of control decks, trap decks, like Subterra, Altergeist, Eldritch, Prosperity is usually the better or more generic pot you want to craft, and if you don't have an infinite amount of crafting points, I think Prosperity is the way to go, and you can definitely get away in this deck as well playing this, because sometimes you don't open a starter card, and opening Prosperity means you open a starter card most of the time. A great thing about the Unchained deck in general is that it can play a lot of non-engine cards. This is something we have talked about on the channel for quite a while now. In the current format, it is impossible to look at a deck and see if it's viable if it's not able to play any hand traps, I feel like, if you want to play up there in the ladder as well. So we play my standard ratio right now, 3 Maxi, 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Impermanence. It is kind of a bummer that these cards are so fixated and you need to play them in the decks. But this is how Yu-Gi-Oh! Works pretty much nowadays. If you want to stop your opponent, if they go first, you have to play those non-engine cards. And even though they're all ultra rare, you can definitely use whatever you have at your disposal. So you could play, and we've discussed this on the channel previously, of course, as well, but I'm going to mention it once more. You can also play a card like Forbidden Chalice, which is only a rare card that at least negates a monster face up on the field. Maybe not on their turn, but on your turn as a quick play spell. So these cards are definitely interchangeable. You don't have to play these exact cards. They're just what I have, and I have only those as well. So if you see them in many of my deck profiles right now, I don't have the crafting points, as you can see, to craft something like a, you know, what would be a good card is maybe Forbidden Droplet or something that you could also play. But now that we've talked about the main deck, I think the extra deck looks like a total mess to you. But the only reason we even have a lot of extra deck cards in here is because we play Pot of Prosperity and we need them. So we just put random cards in here to the most part, not everything. I will only talk about the ones that I feel like are necessary in the deck. One of them being Nightmare Phoenix. Sometimes, you know, you have to out a Floodgate, you have to out certain spell traps that they play, so you want to play a Nightmare Phoenix, and I think this is a card you have to craft even as a free-to-play player. The other one is one Unchained Soul of Rage. So actually, if we look at Unchained cards, they have a lot of extra deck monsters. They have the Unchained Soul of Rage, Unchained Soul of Anguish, and Unchained Abomination. Unchained Abomination is an ultra rare, but is weirdly enough one of the least played in Unchained, in my opinion. Whenever I played this deck in the TCG, I almost never made this card. Almost. Unchained Soul of Anguish is a Link 3 that you can summon with the Disaster. When you target an opponent's Link 2 monster, you can go into this. But you can obviously also go into a Link 2, because their Link 2 can also count as a Link 1. So you don't have to go into the Link 3, it's just an option. And the Unchained Soul of Rage is the most important one out of these. So as we're trying to make this deck a free-to-play deck, we're focusing on having as little amount of super rare cards or ultra rare cards in this deck list as possible. So we only play one of this. And the good thing is, if we don't play Pot of Extravagance, we don't have to play multiple of this, because we are not scared of banishing this with Pot of Extravagance. Now, what does this card do? You need 2 monsters, including an Unchained Soul monster. So the Unchained Soul are only the 2 super rares here. Only the 2 super rares, not the other 1 small ones. During your opponent's main phase, you can target 1 face-up special summoned monster your opponent controls. Immediately after this effect resolves, Link summon 1 dark Link monster by using only that opponent's monster and this card you control. So what a typical play could look like is you use Unchained Soul of Disaster, target your opponent's monster, target itself, go into Unchained Soul of Rage in their turn, use itself and use an opponent's monster once again to Link summon to go into something like Decode Talker or Nightmare Unicorn. So that's why Nightmare Unicorn is also an important card. I feel like IP Masquerena can also sometimes come up. You want to go with this sometimes with Soul of Disaster. And Boral Sword is just a means to an end, so we can finish the game if we really have to. And also to out cards like, this is actually a currently somewhat popular deck on the ladder, is a Blue Eyes Chaos Max deck, where you have to out the Ritual Chaos Max monster by having more attack. And other than Skill Drain, we don't have an out to this in this deck list. That's why we play Boral Sword, so we can potentially go for something like this. Now, another thing I also want to mention is, because we play Trap Trick, we could think about playing very good generic normal traps as well, like Ice Dragon's Prison. This is a very popular choice in the TCG. Target a monster in your opponent's grave, special summon it to your field, negate its effects, banish a monster your opponent controls with the same type as any monster you control and they have. The reason this is a popular choice in the TCG is because this deck has an incredibly difficult time, and by incredibly difficult I mean impossible time, outing Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. Thing is, Red Eyes Dark Dragoon is luckily banned in this game. That's why I even thought about playing this deck, and that's why I thought this deck smiled at me a bit when this game was launched. So that's why I think it is not necessary to play Ice Dragon's Prison. It's a super rare, you don't have to craft it. As you can see, we only need like so little super rare slots for this deck already, so we want to keep it as free to play friendly as possible. That's it. Let's look at some replays. My Unchained gameplay is not going to be the greatest. I'm going to tell you that. It's been a long time since I've played this deck. I played it a lot in the TCG at some point and even got to high rated dueling book with it, but it's been a long time, and this format, it's confusing to me. sometimes. And also this whole user interface. Like, still the graveyard, it just messes me up sometimes. Anyway, we go first. We open Maxi, Aruha, Prison, and double skill drain. So Aruha Prison is a nice combo. Let's read Aruha here for a second. You can target a card you control. You cannot special summon for the rest of the turn except fiend monsters. Also destroy the targeted card. And if you do, special summon this card from your hand. Abomination's Prison is nice. It's not an Unchained card, but it's part of the Unchained archetype. You can add an Unchained card from your deck to your hand. If this set card is destroyed by card effect, you can special summon an Unchained monster from your deck. Now notice how it says add one Unchained card. So it can also add the trap cards, which is something that we want to do here definitely. The Prison is something that gets us to every card in our deck. So what we would have done here, they throw Ash. Let's ignore that for a second. What we would have done here, our game plan would have been to add any trap to our hand, set the trap to the field, use Arua's effect, target the trap, destroy the trap, special Aruha, special another Unchained monster, and go from there. So this is a very common play you want to think about whenever you open any trap or Prison plus your Aruha, or maybe even an Unchained monster, because this can just target any card. Doesn't have to be a spell trap. They chain Ash Blossom, so Ash Blossom, it's a bit, you know, bad for us. It hurts a bit. We set Aruha, set to skill drain. So the nice thing is that this card floats. And the great thing is we can float theoretically into the Unchained Soul of Abomination. Discard a card, target one card they control, or not target, doesn't target, just discard one card and destroy a card they have. So in the battle phase, often they will run into your Unchained monsters, especially if they don't really know your deck currently in Master Duel, and you can just destroy a card they control. Now, they play this Photon deck. I know this deck to some degree, not really. They activate a card that special summons 2 tokens. I'm like, well, fine, I guess we're gonna activate Maxi here. They chain Cold by the Grave. They have everything they need. And we just sort of hope that Skill Drain is going to be enough here. But I think this replay is going to show just how much work Skill Drain can put in certain scenarios, and versus decks that aren't Eldritch or Drytron. Maybe Drytron's also not the worst under Skill Drain, but if you play against any other decks, like Skill Drain is usually a total blowout card. So we activate Skill Drain. They wanted to increase or decrease, I think increase the level of a monster they control by 4. We are not going to let them do that. They crash into our Unchained monster, and here's sort of the synergy you see between Skill Drain and our Unchained effects. It triggers in the graveyard, and we can special summon Abominable Unchained Soul from our deck. It is a 3000 body, and now they just have to get over it. That's basically it. We draw this trap card here, Abominable Chamber. So the Abominable Chamber is a card special summon one Unchained monster from your hand or graveyard. Once again, it is not targeting, so if your opponent would chain Cold by the Grave to your Unchained monster in the grave, this would still resolve. If this set card is destroyed by card effect, and so on and so on, we already know this effect. But it's nice to draw this, because we can use this to summon back our Aruha, and then maybe keep going from there. We have a very slow, control-oriented game plan. We set the Abominable Chamber, and it's their turn, but they cannot do anything under Skill Drain, so they end their turn again. We activate the Abominable Chamber, they chain Maxi, which is fine, they're just gonna draw a card. So basically like an upstart for them. I'm gonna fast forward this. We special summon back the Aruha, and at this point we draw Maxi, it's fine. We just attack into both monsters, and at this point we put them on a clock. What do I mean by that? We put them on a clock, 2 turns. If they don't join out in the next 2 turns, we're just gonna attack them twice and they're gonna lose. So it's their turn. They use Galaxy Soldier in the hand. I chain Maxi, and at this point they chain Ash Blossom, but it doesn't matter. At this point I was very confident they cannot do anything anymore. We just outgrinded them with Skill Drain. The Unchained deck is very good in these sort of scenarios, where if you are equal in terms of card economy with your opponent, this deck is just gonna outgrind your opponent in most scenarios. This field that they have, I want it so badly, but I don't want to spend gems on it. It's the Karakuri one, dude. I love Karakuri. Anyway, our hand is terrible. We open Torrential Tribute, Impermanence, Triple Chamber. Obviously, Chamber doesn't do anything if we don't have any Unchaineds already in the game. They go first, so it's going to be their main phase. They activate Desires. Ooh, beautiful Desires even. They activate Ashuna in hand. Now, if you don't know 10 years, I want to do a deck profile on this deck. I think it's very cool. It's a very, as well, free-to-play friendly deck that you can use for the ladder as of now. I think you can definitely get to Platinum with this deck. These cards are going to get super standard in just a couple of months, hopefully just weeks from this point on, if they release the Sword Soul cards in Master Duel. because these are worms and they synergize with these 10-yi cards because they're also worms in many regards. But they use Ashuna, they special summon it, they go into Monk of the 10-yi, which is a link monster they can generically use. They special summon the fire one, it doesn't really matter, they do some plays. They use Vishuda, special Vishuda, use Ashuna in the graves, special summon Atara, this is a tuner, a non-tuner, and they can basically go for a synchro play. Their board is not going to be the greatest, but it is somewhat frightening. Because they normal summon Vanity's Fiend. So Vanity's Fiend, if you don't know, this is an old school card to some degree. Cannot be special summoned. Neither player can special summon monsters. So this is something that hurts our Unchained deck as well. And this Draco Berserker of the 10-yi reads, when your opponent activates a monster effect, as a quick effect, you can banish it. Draw phase. We draw a card. We draw Abomination's Prison. So this is nice because this sort of gets us started. If we wouldn't have drawn anything here, I think this game would have looked really bad already for us. But luckily we draw it. They don't have an Ash as their last card. And basically what we do, as you can see here, we play the Eldritch game. We set 4, or set 5 in it, actually, if we count the monster as well, and pass. Now, the great thing is, going second, the Unchained deck can actually pull off stuff like this. You just set 5 cards. Because of Torrential Tribute, if they commit to another monster on the board, we nuke the entire field and get an Unchained monster on the field, so we win automatically. We also have double Abominable Chamber, which we can activate if we impermanence the Vanity's Fiend. And we can special summon the Abominable Unchained Soul if we get our Aruha destroyed by their effects or their battle or something, or our own effects. And then we can discard the third Abominable Chamber from our hand to destroy a card on the field. That's why we kept the Abominable Chamber in the hand, and we're gonna just pass. What they're going to do, they're going to use the Vishuda, and the reason they are not using the Vishuda to bounce the monster is because they're confident their Vanity's Fiend will go through. Although I have to say that in their shoes, I would probably have still bounced the monster to play around the card like Impermanence, because it's very likely to be played in our deck. Now, they use Adhara to add back the Vishuda. Like I said, these effects don't really matter for you if you want to play the Unchained deck. Now, they attack our Aruha. We use Impermanence to negate their Vanity's Fiend, as I've mentioned. They use their 10-yi, but it doesn't matter. It has a second effect where it can attack twice. The Aruha is going to trigger in our graveyard. We're going to special summon an Unchained monster from our deck to the field. Let's see how this turns out. We're going to summon the Rakea. So my thought process here was that if we summon the Rakea, we can pop our own Abominable Chamber. Quick effect, target a card you control, destroy it. We can target this set Abominable Chamber, destroy it, summon another Unchained monster from the deck, potentially summon Unchained Abominable Soul, discard a card and destroy one of theirs. So we pop the Abominable Chamber. They don't react. They could banish our Rakea, but they choose not to. We use it to summon the Abominable Unchained Soul. Now here, look at this nice play. We discard, they chain Impermanence, and at this point we chain our own Torrential Tribute. Because our Abominable Unchained Soul triggered in the same chain it was summoned, we can chain the Torrential Tribute even to the Impermanence. So, just it doesn't come up for this specific scenario, but in case you're wondering, if now our opponent had another set spell trap on the field, we could even destroy the set spell trap with our Abominable Unchained Soul, because it is a non-targeting destruction effect, and it wasn't negated by Impermanence because it was removed from the field before Impermanence could resolve, targeting the Abominable Unchained Soul on the field. So you have a lot of nice interactions like this with this deck, especially with Torrential Tribute as well. They're going to trigger the 10-yi monster to reborn one of their cards, but we use the Rakea as well to summon a Unchained monster from the deck. And I think at this point I knew that we were going to be in a very good position. We summoned the Sarama. Let's go over Sarama real quick. You can target an Unchained card in your graveyard, any card, set it to your field, destroy a card you control. So this is a combo starter almost for Unchained if you have a grave setup. You can set something like an Abominable Chamber, set it to the field, and immediately destroy it and summon another Unchained monster from the deck. So this really gets your plays going. So generally, if you're confident your opponent will not attack or destroy another Unchained monster you control for the rest of the turn, you want to get out Sarama, because this is a card that will let you play on your turn. Sarama obviously cannot summon out Sarama from the deck. It says you can special summon any Unchained monster except itself. So that's why you want to go for this, if you know your opponent is not going to destroy any other cards you control this turn. They use Reborn on the Synchro, so they end on at least one interruption. It's their end phase, and now they change their turn. The good thing is that this 10U monster, this Draco Berserker, it doesn't negate the effects, it only banishes the monster that activates. So we used the Sarama, and I was pretty confident they would try to banish the Sarama, but it doesn't matter because we simply put back the trap on the field, destroy it, and look at this, how we're gonna play this out. So we're gonna use the Unchained Soul of Disaster that we summoned to link away their Draco Berserker from the field. We go into Unchained Soul of Rage, attack into their Lunfollinkos, and set our Abominable Chamber. At this point, we have a very nice setup. They don't have any cards left in their hand. They have a couple of follow-up cards theoretically in the grave, but they don't do anything if they don't draw a 10E monster. They draw Dimensional Fissure, which I'm not entirely sure why they play it in this deck, but for us it doesn't matter. We can just summon back the Rakea with our Abominable Chamber. And at this point, we can just see how this unfolds. We use Aruha to destroy the Rakea. Nice thing, they don't only trigger if they're put to the grave, also if they're banished. So you could theoretically play something like Macrocosmos even in the Unchained deck, even though your Abominable Chamber might not be as good then anymore. We summon our Sarama from the deck, and at this point they just scoop because they realize we have accumulated too much advantage. So I feel like against other slower decks or control decks, the Unchained deck has a very good matchup, and even the Eldritch deck, because the Eldritch deck just destroys a lot of stuff you control, right? And then you always float into other monsters. Alright, let's look at this replay. We open Maxi, Sarama, Prison, Prosperity, Skill Drain. This is a god hand. Or maybe not a god hand, but it's a very good hand. It's maybe not a god hand. We go into main phase. We activate Prison. We add the Escape. And maybe in hindsight, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe we should have searched Aruha, set the Sarama, use Aruha to destroy the Sarama, and summon another from the deck. But I think what my goal here was that I wanted to get the trap so we can play it a bit more safely. It doesn't play into Maxi as much. It doesn't play into other hand traps as much. So that's why we search the Escape, I suppose. We use Prosperity to banish 6, and we banish any 6. They held their Ash, as you notice here. They didn't use it on the Prison, which is, I think, heads up from them. And the Prison is not something you want to Ash if you play versus Unchained. We don't resolve the Pot of Prosperity. We normal summon Sarama, so it's an open card on the field because we need to target an Unchained monster with the Escape of Unchained and any other card on the field. So this needs to be face up. And then we set Skill Drain and half Maxi in our hand. So all in all, our setup is reasonably strong here. They go for Virtual World City, so this is the Virtual World deck. Now, in the end, it really pays off that we search the Escape of Unchained, because Skill Drain is not the best card versus Virtual World. If we only had this as an interruption, it wouldn't really be too strong. Now, Escape of the Unchained is nice here because we can chain the Escape of the Unchained to them activating the Virtual World effect in the hand to destroy the trap that they are targeting with their Virtual World card, so that the Virtual World effect in the hand doesn't resolve. The Lao, the Virtual World card in his hand, forgets that this was a trap card when it was on the field, when it first tried to activate its effect. So that's what we do. We chain the Escape of the Unchained, targeting our Sarama, targeting their trap, destroying both. And usually if they open Lao, you can be pretty sure that their hand is kind of mediocre, because this is usually a card that you want to activate later on your turn and not as your first card. We summon out the Rakea, not for any specific reason, just summon out any name. They go for Desires, and as you can see here, their hand actually was very mediocre probably. They bricked a bit. What's the last thing I can give you on your way if you want to build this deck? You don't have to copy the exact same list I am using here. There are many other variants, and maybe look at other YouTube videos as well, what they have built. I wouldn't call myself the Unchained expert or anything like that. This is the build that I use to get into Platinum 1. Other than that, I hope you have fun with it, and let me know in the comment section what you think of it and how successful you are with the deck, how it's going for you. I hope you loved the video, and I will see you in the next one very, very soon. See you.